Let's get started. So thank you very much for coming here today and listening to me and others. My name is Rasmus Andersen. I'm from Denmark. I'm responsible for Juniper's security sales in Northern Europe and Russia and Eastern Europe, for the lack of a bigger territory. So I'm going to talk to you today about the network that knows. So one thing that we're doing within Juniper at the moment is we have been spending a bit of time looking at our organization, our go-to-market, and how what kind of products we have, how we can help our customers. And one thing that we were looking at was you can't really launch anything new on old thinking. So that's become part of our DNA, that we need to think about that. Within security, it's important to note as well that there is nothing as such as a silver bullet. There is not one thing that will fix everything for us. You cannot put a box in that will solve every use case on the world. So we need to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective. So security is, to us, kind of a big ecosystem. There's a lot of actors within security. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has some data. Security is basically, today, about risk management and about big data analysis. So that's a very important part. And you see, I've just listed a few things up here. You got something like network security appliance vendors. We could be one, yes. DDoS vendors, we could be one. You've got email gateways, you've got law enforcement, you've got the legal guy that was here next to us. You've got yourself as customers, and that's important. You have a lot of knowledge within your organization that we need to help you better organize. Today, we are not necessarily extremely good in sharing information between all of these different vendors as it is. And that's probably a little bit unfortunate. So what we did at Juniper was we kind of sat down, took our little hat on, and thought, well, we can't really do anything new based on old thinking. So we started to think about, can we be the best to everybody? Probably not. Can we attract all the best talent to Juniper? Probably not either, even though we may want to pay them a lot of money and so on and so forth. That's most likely not doable. Can we create all of these products that you saw on the other side? Can we be a vendor in each of these categories? Do we have the knowledge within our organization to do such a thing? Probably not either. So what we thought about was, instead of being an independent achiever on each of the different items within this, we wanted to go to what we call interdependent collaborator. So being in a position where we could collaborate with you as customers, with our partners like Santa Monica Networks, with third-party vendors in an open architecture to be capable of helping you solving this puzzle of IT security. And I'm stressing open here because one of the things that we kind of realized was we could put some money on the table. That would be a little bit of an old thinking, and buy somebody and say, well, now we can do advanced persistent threat. That was one thing that we could do. But when we sat there with our little thinking hat, we thought, well, if we do that, that will cost us a bit of money, but will we be capable of keeping those people within our organization for years to come? I don't think so, because the people who are dealing with advanced persistent threat, cyber warfare that we're talking about, they don't necessarily want to get into an American corporate world. They want to work with cutting-edge people. They want to work with people who can challenge them on a daily basis on what they do. And that's not necessarily people within Juniper. What we are good at is automation of systems and also networks. So instead of trying to buy or build everything, we would rather be collaborating in an open manner to make sure that we can help you going forward. I'll get back to it a bit later. So when we look at security as it is today, this is from Verizon Data Breach Report. A lot of countries has put data into this as well. It's a bit interesting. Some of the biggest threats that you see here is web application attacks. So that's the number of breaches where you have had a web application being breached. But actual incidents where data has been exfiltrated due to this was only 6%. Sorry, it was the other way around. But if you look at espionage, what we're talking about cyber warfare in here, you see it's only 1% of the number of incidents that happened last year, but where you had data exfiltrated, it was 22%. So that was a big number, and of course something that you being, if you're in risk management, something that you would be looking at. Also here, I think what is interesting for you as customers, look at this chart here, very simple chart, looking at benchmarking according to your vertical. What kind of threats do you see in your vertical? So how can you better leverage your investment in security architecture going forward? So if you are in mining, well, maybe you should look at something for cyber espionage, right? Maybe that's where you want to do. If you are in accommodation, hotels, maybe it's point of sale systems you want to control better. If you're in information systems, you probably should start looking at investing in something protecting your web applications, right? So just a little bit of an interesting thing of how you want to invest your money going forward. If we look at the cybersecurity kill chain pre-infection, so I think this one was mentioned before as well, and you will see this in a lot of different ways and thoughts, but the common thought behind it is the same. So if you look at it, in the beginning of a kill chain, you have a couple of things happening. So that's reconnaissance. That's where your attackers are trying to figure something out about you and how to get into your networks, right? So at Juniper, we believe that we can help you know your attackers. And I'll get into how we do that. So basically, the way we do it is with our web application security. It's the deception-based security, where we are in front of your websites, and we are putting tar traps in front of the attackers to make sure everybody who has bad intent falls into that trap. It can be different kinds of traps, but it's traps that are interesting to a hacker. When they do that, when they fall into those traps, a normal person would not trick those traps. But when they do, we can start to track them. And there I'm not just talking about tracking them based on an IP address. We can actually track them down to the device they're utilizing. So are they utilizing this fine computer here? Are they using my Mac? And how are they getting into the network? Why is that interesting? That's interesting because you don't necessarily want to block an IP address. You want to block and follow the bad guys. An IP address, we can be a lot of people behind an IP address. Today, we're probably 200 people behind the IP address of this Wi-Fi hotspot. But that's not interesting. It's interesting if it's me who's hacking someone. So that's me you want to catch in that. You can profile the dude coming at you, saying, well, how bad is he? And then, of course, when you have profiled him, you can also put what kind of respond do you want to put in front of him? Do you want to put this person in quarantine? Do you want to block them? What do you want to do? Do you just want to follow them? We have a lot of customers who just want to follow. And the reason that they just want to follow is because that's the way you learn. And what we want to do is we want to understand what attackers are doing. We want to understand their methodology that they're utilizing to get into our networks. We want to understand how they exfiltrate data from us. So just a little so you can see how that looks. On JUNIPER.net, we are utilizing this today. And this is data coming from, I think it's about 10 months. That's the number of incidents, 200,000 incidents where we have seen attackers trying to do something onto our website to try to circumvent it in some way or form. Okay? That boils down to about 10,000 attackers that we are currently tracking in our global database. So a little bit above 1-2 times how many times they have tried to get into our website. Not that interesting. If you look at the countries coming at JUNIPER.net, not a huge surprise. China being the largest one. Not a big surprise in that sense. And this is a profile of one of the guys trying to get into our systems. So here we can see a little bit how much time he's been using. We can see how many requests, what kind of system he's been using, where he's from. We give him a bogus name, but that's just to be able to track him. What kind of behavior he has had and what kind of responses. So we have slowed him down firstly, then we have simulated a broken application, and we could have done other things as well. So when you do all of this and he keeps on coming at you with new stuff, you know he is a really bad guy. So now we are actually in the situation where maybe he has breached our network now. So he has found a way to get into our system. So now he starts weaponizing it and get ready for delivery of his stuff. When we talk about delivery, oftentimes used is some kind of DDoS attack. So why would you use a DDoS attack now? That's just to defer me as a defender. An attacker, they use a DDoS attack to defer me. So now they DDoS me and I start jumping at that DDoS to try and mitigate that DDoS. They walk around and start implementing that exploit that they created. Now we're hacked. Bollocks. So what do we do now? Again, at Juniper, we have to remember everything is tied into the network. Everything flows onto the network. And that's why we are saying we also are the networks that know your biggest threats. When we look at that, we look at SIEM systems. So you don't necessarily have to go buy a Juniper SIEM system, but if you could, I would say think about investing in a SIEM system for a number of different things. SIEM is Security Event and Incident Management System. So it's important to you to get visibility of what is happening in your network. So with the SIEM system, you collect all flow and data in one place. That means that you can start correlating data. That means you can get some kind of information on what is going on in your network. You can look for anomaly. So is the network flows behaving differently? You can get that out. And bear in mind, you will probably see maybe 2,000-3,000 events in 1 week, and you will only have 1 or 2 incidents that you would have to look into. But it will help you sort all of your log files and so on and so forth, and get down to what is actually the problem. Okay? It will also help you with compliance reporting, should that be a necessity in your business. But it will create a lot of data that you potentially can use onto your network to control your network in an even better manner. Today, when we look at it, traditional security is not enough. Next-gen firewalls are good. Yes, you should probably have a next-gen firewall, but it will not protect you. It will help you do policies. It will not protect you. So I'll go through a little bit about next-gen firewalls, what that means. So first of all, traditional firewalls has been on for a long time. Stateful inspection firewall has been on for a long time. About 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6, there was a company called Palo Alto Networks, another company called Gartner saying, well, now we need something called next-gen firewalls. They've done a phenomenal job. So next-gen firewall is basically a question of you have application visibility and control, combining it with identity-based firewalling, and also have some kind of intrusion prevention systems. Again, this is all about known threats when you talk about the intrusion prevention systems as well. So using our thinking hat again and thinking, well, we can't continue on old thinking, we said, okay, we have a next-gen firewall. What is next? We need to look at a dynamic, adaptive firewall. That's what we need to look at now. So we need to look at an open platform where others can tap into it. Not necessarily someone that's signed up by us, but someone we can collaborate with, either direct or through you as customers or partners. It has to be scalable, and that's because in our mind we are coming from the network. We're coming from high IQ networks. We're coming from big data centers. So it has to be really powerful in the marketplace as well. We have built it to be able to consume a vast amount of data right now, but we will also have the capability of easily expanding it into the future. We are using some threat scores onto this to make it a little bit more tunable. And then when we talk adaptive, it's important to think, when you think security use cases and the firewall, how you implement security into a data center is not necessarily the same way that you want to implement security onto a branch office or for normal users like you and I. In a data center, it's important to know who's coming at your web application. For users, it might be more important to see what kind of websites these users are trying to go to. And it might be what kind of malware is coming at them that's important. So there are different use cases and different things and feeds that you have to put on depending on where you are in the structure. So our threat intelligence, how that is built up is that we are collecting data feeds from a number of different vendors out there. So instead of trying to build our own APT team, our old AET team, or whatever team you want to call it, we are working with the best of breeds. We are working with vector networks. We are working with last line. We could be working with FireEye. We are not working with FireEye, but we could be doing that. Or it could be working with the local governments of CERT. It could be working with the universities as well. So what we're doing is we have a number of vendors today that we have agreed with, where we take their feeds and we normalize it. We adapt it to how these kind of feeds will work on a firewall. So if we know, think about the kill chain, about a command and control server somewhere, we can stop that traffic. We can take feed from different vendors and see that and stop whoever has infiltrated your network from sending data out. Okay? Our feed set include IP addresses, domains, and URLs. We can take up to 1 million, as it is today. We refresh it on an hourly basis. But that's just what we do. That's something you can get from us. But more importantly, it's an open platform. So, oh, well, haven't got too much time, so I'll just skip over that one. It's an open platform. So up here you see a number of feeds that you can get from us. The attacker fingerprints is what you get from our web app secure. The GUIP is something you can use to set policy. Do I want traffic from Russia or not? Do I want to throttle my bandwidth when I'm going to Denmark or not? Maybe I want to. Command and control server, stop the malware. Stop it from exfiltrating data from our network systems. But down here, you have customer provided or third-party data. So when I was talking about SIEM system, you guys know your network. You know the traffic within your network. None of the vendors in here have the same knowledge about your network as you have. You can use your knowledge onto this platform and use it to set actionable items onto your firewalls. So if you see something happening, you see Rasmus sitting here going to a database he's not supposed to be doing within your network, you can put sanctions onto it automatically. So that's the interesting part. Also, if you work with third party, if you work with Santa Monica networks, they could be creating these feeds for you. What is going on here in this country? Does it make sense to have that kind of policy on here? Us coming from the United States, we probably do not know a lot about it. So you know a lot more of what is happening in your organization. Everything is managed from one single interface. So you manage your firewall policies, you manage your UTM policies, you manage your next generation firewall policies, whatever you want to do, from the same interface. But now you can also manage cloud infrastructure with feeds coming from Juniper, or local infrastructure with feeds coming from yourself or third parties. So what is our job? Our job is to help you protect from botnets. We do that with the feeds getting from us and the platform. A different job we have is to integrate in an open fashion, open automated fashion with third parties. We also need to help you identify who is attacking your network because, again, that's where we're strong. So that's where we can help. And then we need to help you create policies. Policies based on GUIPs, policies based on applications, what have you. So hopefully you'll see us deliver on the network that knows. So this platform consumes virtually any feed. So if you can put your feeds onto a web server, a static whitelist, what have you, this platform will consume it. You do not have to go buy something separately from us. You can create your own feeds and you can have your partners help you and they can build value for you. It can support thousands of firewalls as it is today, and it also supports about 1 million data feed entries per instance as it is today. You can just add virtual instances of the management system if you need more. And it's adaptable. So again, you can fine-tune it, but you can also adapt it. Should it be used in the data center? Should it be used at the office? Should it be used at the users? So again, fine-tuning to make sure that the firewall is capable of delivering the services you need here and now and in the future without consuming too much capacity onto the firewall. That's all from me.